Iran and Israel, two powerful Middle Eastern nations, were once quiet partners, sharing discreet ties in trade and security during the mid-20th century. Their relationship, though never fully open, was marked by mutual interests and a sense of pragmatic cooperation. That changed dramatically after Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution, when the new leadership, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, branded Israel and the US as enemies of the revolution. Overnight, Iran's foreign policy shifted, and hostility toward Israel became a central pillar of its ideology. Decades of shadow conflict followed, fought through proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. These groups, supported by Iran, became key players in the ongoing struggle, turning the conflict into a complex web of alliances and enmities. Israel's main fear, Iran's nuclear ambitions, which it sees as an existential threat to its very survival. The possibility of a nuclear-armed Iran has driven Israeli policy and military planning for years. Iran claims its nuclear program is peaceful, focused on energy and medical research, but its secretive actions and rhetoric have fueled global suspicion and alarm, especially in the West. The rivalry is about more than nukes. It's about regional influence, religious ideology, and the struggle for dominance in the Middle East. Both nations seek to shape the region's future in their own image. Iran backs anti-Israel groups to project power without direct war, providing weapons, training, and funding to its allies across the region. This proxy conflict has destabilized the region, turning neighbors into battlegrounds and leaving millions caught in the crossfire of wars they did not start. By 2025, years of indirect fighting, covert operations, and escalating rhetoric set the stage for open confrontation between the two nations. Both sides see the other as a fundamental threat to their existence and way of life, fueling a cycle of fear and preparation for war. The shadow war, long fought in the dark, was about to erupt into direct conflict, threatening to engulf the region in chaos. The world watched anxiously, knowing that a direct war between Iran and Israel could have devastating global consequences, reshaping alliances and threatening peace far beyond the Middle East. The path to the 12-day war began years earlier, shaped by decades of tension, shifting alliances, and unresolved grievances simmering beneath the surface. The 2023 Hamas attack on Israel marked a turning point, shocking the world and reigniting old hostilities in the region. Iran, a key supporter of Hamas, openly praised the attack, fueling anger and suspicion across the Middle East and beyond. Israel, in turn, blamed Iran for orchestrating the violence, deepening the rift between the two regional powers and drawing international attention. This triggered a relentless cycle of strikes and counterstrikes, as both sides tested each other's limits and old boundaries began to erode. In April 2024, Israel escalated the conflict by striking an Iranian diplomatic building in Syria, killing senior commanders, a move seen as a major provocation. Iran vowed swift and forceful retaliation, and on April 13th launched its first ever direct assault on Israel, unleashing over 300 drones and missiles in a dramatic show of force. With crucial help from the US, UK, France, and several Arab states, Israel managed to intercept nearly all incoming projectiles, averting mass casualties and further chaos. Israel responded with a limited but precise strike on an Iranian military site, demonstrating its ability to hit sensitive targets deep inside Iran's territory. For a brief moment, tensions eased, but the taboo of direct attacks between the two nations had been shattered, changing the rules of engagement. Both Iran and Israel had now struck each other's territory directly. The precedent was set, and the world watched anxiously. Across the region, civilians braced for the next escalation, stocking up on supplies and preparing for the unknown. Armies mobilized, commanders strategized, and warplanes stood ready on air bases. The stage was set for a direct war. The world's nerves were frayed as leaders scrambled to prevent a wider catastrophe, and markets reeled from the uncertainty. The countdown to open conflict had begun, and the fate of the Middle East and perhaps the world hung in the balance. The fragile calm that had settled over the region was shattered on June 13, 2025, in a moment that would change the course of history. In the dead of night, Israel launched a surprise air assault deep inside Iran, targeting its most sensitive nuclear facilities at Natanz and Isfahan. The world watched in disbelief as explosions lit up the Iranian sky, signaling a new and dangerous phase in the long-simmering conflict. This was no symbolic strike. It was a calculated gamble, meticulously planned to cripple Iran's nuclear program and send a clear message to Tehran and the world. Israeli leaders framed the operation as an act of preemptive self-defense, insisting it was necessary to prevent a greater threat. Yet much of the world saw it as a bold act of aggression that risked igniting a wider war. The operation used advanced tactics and stealth technology to bypass Iran's formidable air defenses, aiming to set back the nuclear timeline by years and demonstrate Israel's military reach. Israel knew Iran would retaliate, but bet on its own layered defenses and the unwavering support of the United States, hoping to weather the coming storm. For Iran, the attack was a national humiliation, a direct challenge to its regime, and a call to rally the nation in the face of foreign aggression. The shadow war that had raged for years in the background was over. Open conflict had begun, and the world could only watch as events spiraled out of control. The first shots of the 12-day war had been fired, echoing across borders and shattering any illusion of peace. The Middle East's fragile stability was shattered as civilians scrambled for safety and cities braced for the unknown. There was no turning back. Borders closed, streets emptied, and fear gripped millions. The world braced for escalation as diplomats scrambled and leaders weighed their next moves in a rapidly changing crisis. The stakes had never been higher, and the fate of the region and perhaps the world hung in the balance. As news of the Israeli strikes broke, attention turned to Washington. President Donald Trump swiftly ordered U.S. military intervention at Israel's request. The conflict now involved a global superpower. U.S. warplanes joined Israel, targeting Iran's nuclear sites, including the deeply buried Fordo facility. Trump declared the sites obliterated, showcasing American military might. The joint operation aimed to cripple Iran's nuclear capabilities for years. But it also put U.S. troops in the region directly in Iran's crosshairs. The decision was divisive. Critics feared a wider war. Supporters saw it as necessary. America's entry fundamentally changed the war's course. The stakes for the region and the world rose dramatically. The conflict had become truly global. Iran had to respond to the combined Israeli-American assault. Instead of another failed missile barrage at Israel, Iran targeted the U.S. directly. Ballistic missiles struck Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. military hub in the region. The attack sent a clear message. Iran could hit back at American forces. The risk of all-out war soared. Sensing disaster, President Trump called for a complete and total ceasefire on social media. For a moment, the world exhaled. But just hours later, Israeli jets struck a radar station near Tehran, claiming retaliation for intercepted Iranian missiles. Iran denied launching them. The ceasefire teetered on the edge. Intense diplomacy, including a direct Trump-Netanyahu call, restored the truce. The 12-day war was over, but the peace was fragile. The region remained on a knife's edge. The world watched anxiously. After the ceasefire, the big question: what was left of Iran's nuclear program? US and Israeli strikes caused massive damage to Natanz and Fordo, as satellite images confirmed. But destroying buildings isn't the same as destroying a program. Iran claimed it moved its enriched uranium stockpile to a secret location before the attacks. US intelligence didn't dispute this. The world now faced a dangerous reality. Iran's knowledge and materials may have survived. International inspectors were sidelined. Iran threatened to cut off all cooperation with the IAEA. The attacks, meant to increase security, may have made the future more uncertain. Iran's leaders vowed to rebuild. The war hardened their resolve. The goal of stopping a nuclear Iran seemed further away. The nuclear question remained unresolved. The 12-day war's toll was devastating. In Iran, over 600 people died, soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike. In Israel, 28 were killed. and millions lived under constant threat. Air raid sirens and bomb shelters became daily life. The psychological scars will linger long after the rubble is cleared. Iran's nuclear and military sites were left in ruins, a blow to national pride and infrastructure. Rebuilding will be a monumental challenge. The war also sent oil prices soaring and disrupted global markets. For Iranians already under sanctions, the hardship deepened. The cost in lives, infrastructure, and economic stability was immense. Both nations paid a heavy price. The region's wounds will take years to heal. The war was shaped by a handful of leaders. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, facing political troubles, saw Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat. His decision to strike was both strategic and political. President Trump's intervention turned a regional clash into a global crisis, but he also called for a ceasefire. His actions were both escalatory and de-escalatory, reflecting his unpredictable style. International figures like IAEA chief Rafael Grossi struggled to maintain oversight amid chaos. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio signaled openness to diplomacy, even as Trump held a hard line. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei approved a calibrated response, showing strength but avoiding total war. Each leader's choices shaped the war's course and its fragile end. The world watched as personalities drove history. As of June 28, 2025, a tense ceasefire holds. The fighting has stopped, but true peace is elusive. The core issues, Israel's fear of a nuclear Iran, Iran's defiance, remain unresolved. The war solved nothing, leaving a more dangerous landscape. Europe tries to mediate, hoping to revive nuclear talks, but faces resistance from all sides. The US sends mixed signals. Israel remains uncompromising. Legal and ethical questions about the war's legitimacy will linger. Powerful nations act with impunity, and accountability is unlikely. The risk of renewed conflict is high. A single misstep could reignite war. The Middle East now knows direct war is no longer hypothetical. The 12-day war changed everything, but resolved nothing. The world waits, hoping the uneasy calm will last.